Hello, what's up guys? Welcome back to a brand new academic learning video. And in this video, we are going to be learning about quadratic equations. And this is actually the first part in a two-part series about quadratic equations. This video will just be an introduction, and then the next video will be how to factor quadratic equations and how to FOIL quadratic equations. All right, let's get started. So, if you want to understand a quadratic equation, you need to understand a polynomial. So, oops, my pen is not the right color. Okay, so what is a polynomial? Well, if you look what a polynomial is online, it will tell you that's an expression with variables and coefficients. I'll just abbreviate that. Expression with variables and coefficients. All right, so just in case you don't know what these are, let's go ahead and review them. So, what's an expression? Well, an expression is not the same as an equation. So let me just write that here. Expression is not equal to equation. Let me just give you some examples. So now an expression might be something like x plus 2, but an equation would be x plus 2 equals like 4. See, do you see the difference here? The equation has the equal sign. You can kind of see equa. An expression is just whatever the variable and constants are. Now, variables, just to review, variables are something that you don't know and they are used in expressions. And coefficients is the number in front of the variable. So if we have 3x here, then the coefficient would be 3. It's the number in front of the variables. But if we look at this expression right here, what's the coefficient? Well, you can't really just say coefficient because there's multiple parts called terms. So I'll just write terms. Polynomial is made of terms. And you have to specify the coefficient of what term? The coefficient of the x term, because the coefficient of the x term in this case would be 1. And the coefficient of the constant term, which is this 2, I'm not sure if it's written like this all the time, but technically you can write 2 as 2x to the 0th. And you can think of 2 as the coefficient, but if you don't know what that means, then don't worry. I'll have a exponents video probably sometime soon. All right, so let's just go ahead and review what a polynomial is now. So a polynomial is an expression, so something like, my pen is not the right color again. It's something like x plus 3 with coefficients, in this case being 1 for the x term, and variables, which is the x. Now, it didn't specify an x variable, so it could be like y plus 3, but most of the time we're going to be using x, especially for what we're doing in this video. All right, now let's go ahead and specify some more terminology. Now, sometimes for polynomials, it won't just be x, and you can think of x raised to the first power, because anything raised to the first power is just itself. Sometimes you'll see it as x squared or x cubed. Now, these pretty much mean the same thing, except you're just squaring the number. So for example, if we have x plus 2, what this means is we take a number and then we add 2. But for this, we're saying we take a number and then square it, then add 3 times that number cubed. That might be a little complicated at first, but it's basically just order of operations. All right, now normally polynomials won't be written like this. You usually want to rewrite the highest order terms, and order just means the exponent. You want to write those first. So in this case, it would be 3x cubed plus x squared. And then if there's any constant at the end, then you write that last. Okay, now polynomials have a specific degree. And what does degree mean? No, I do not mean like degree like angles. What I mean by degree is the highest exponent. Now, the degree of a polynomial is just the highest exponent of that polynomial. So if you have the polynomial x squared plus 4x plus 2, that degree is 2. And if it was just x plus 1, the degree would be 1, because again, anything raised to the first power is just itself. Now, sometimes it won't just say degree of the polynomial. Sometimes it'll say degree of this specific term right here. Or let's say it says the degree of the x term. Now, the degree of a specific term is just the exponent of that specific term. So in this case, it would be 1. Okay, so now let's see what we know about polynomials. A polynomial is an expression like this without an equal sign. That would be an equation. And it's separated by terms. And each term, you can think of the plus sign separating the terms, the plus or minus sign. And it has degrees and coefficients with variables. All right, now you might be asking yourself, okay, this is a bunch of terminology, but what does this have anything to do with quadratics? Well, I'll just write this here. Quadratic is a polynomial of degree 2. Polynomial of degree 2. Of degree 2. Now, what you might be asking is, okay, but why degree 2? Why not degree 3? Why not degree 1? Well, there is actually specific names for degree 1, degree 3, and actually a bunch. Degree 1 polynomials are called linear, degree 3 polynomials are called cubic, but quadratics are just really nice to work with, and you'll see why in the next episode when we try to solve for x with them. But that is pretty much what a quadratic is. So let's just do some examples. So x squared plus 3x plus 2, that's a quadratic because the highest exponent is 2. Now, x cubed plus 3x squared is not a quadratic because its highest exponent is 3. And just x squared, that is a quadratic because its exponent is 2. And keep in mind that these coefficients could be anything. And it could even be a different variable, like 3y squared. All right. Now, we've gone over quadratics. Let's see what are quadratic equations, which is specifically what this video is about, not just quadratics. Now, quadratics are just an expression for polynomials. Remember in the beginning of the video, I said expressions are not equations? Well, we can actually use quadratic expressions and treat them like equations to solve for x with them. And this is not the same as just regular solving for x, because if you think about it, if you have x squared plus x equals like 3, how would you isolate the variable on one side? It's really hard because you could think, okay, well, you can't combine these terms, so you can't isolate the variable into one term. So it's actually really kind of difficult to do them in traditional ways to solve for x. So we have to use special ways of solving for x called factoring. And there's other ways like the quadratic of formula, but factoring is probably the most useful and most intuitive. So yeah, come back next week where I'll be talking about factoring and actually how to multiply quadratics. Not just multiply numbers, but multiply full-on expressions and quadratics. Alright, so yeah, I'll see you in the next video.